Emily had spent her entire life in the quiet shadows of the Monteclair Mansion. As the housekeeper's daughter, she had always accepted a life of simplicity, never imagining that destiny would intervene with such intensity. One sunny afternoon, while delivering fresh flowers to the mansion's library, she accidentally collided with Alexander, the young heir, spilling roses across the polished marble floor. Alexander, with his sharp suit slightly disheveled and an expression of both surprise and amusement, looked down at her with curiosity. "Are you all right?" he asked, offering his hand. Emily's cheeks flushed pink, and she instinctively took his hand. "Yes, I'm fine, thank you." Her voice trembled slightly. In that fleeting moment, something unspoken passed between them, a spark of connection that neither could deny. Emily, though aware of the vast differences in their social worlds, felt drawn to his warmth and genuine curiosity. Alexander, intrigued by her intelligence and poise, realized she was unlike anyone he had ever met. The mansion, with its grand halls, polished floors, and secret corners, became the backdrop for an unexpected friendship. Alexander found excuses to encounter Emily, asking her opinions on books, art, and the mansion's long-forgotten heirlooms. Emily, cautious yet captivated, began to see a world beyond her modest upbringing, one filled with wealth, influence, and possibilities she had never dared to dream about. However, their growing connection did not go unnoticed. Victoria, Alexander's ambitious and manipulative cousin, observed the interactions with suspicion. She had long coveted the mansion's power and fortune and saw Emily as a threat to her plans. Her sharp eyes followed every exchange, calculating how to interfere and prevent a bond from forming. Despite Victoria's watchful presence, Emily and Alexander began to share secret smiles, small gestures, and stolen glances. Each moment reinforced an attraction that felt impossible, yet undeniable. The mansion, which had always felt like a cage to Emily, now became a place of secret possibilities, where love dared to bloom amidst rigid social boundaries. As the sun set, casting long shadows through the towering windows, Emily retreated to the servants' quarters, her heart racing with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Alexander, pacing in the library, tried to suppress thoughts of her, but found them impossible to ignore. They were worlds apart, yet something had shifted, an invisible thread connecting their destinies, drawing them closer even as obstacles loomed. Victoria, determined to maintain control, began devising subtle schemes, innocuous comments, calculated interruptions, and whispered rumors to test the resilience of their budding connection. She would soon realize, however, that Emily's courage and sincerity were forces even her manipulation could not easily overcome. The first chapter of their story ended with the sun disappearing behind the mansion's silhouette, leaving Emily and Alexander separated physically but increasingly intertwined emotionally. Neither knew what challenges awaited, but one thing was clear: the spark ignited that day could not be easily extinguished. The next morning, the Monteclair Mansion was alive with the bustle of staff preparing for the day. Emily, carrying a tray of breakfast for the household, felt a nervous excitement she had never known. Thoughts of Alexander lingered in her mind, making her heart race despite her attempts to focus on her duties. Alexander, meanwhile, could not stop thinking about Emily. Every detail, the way she smiled, the soft tone of her voice, the way she carried herself with dignity despite her modest position, had captured his attention. He found excuses to visit the staff areas, inquire about mundane matters, and casually bump into Emily, each encounter deepening the forbidden connection between them. Victoria, observing discreetly from a distance, noticed the subtle exchanges and felt a surge of anger. She could not allow a housekeeper's daughter to gain Alexander's attention. It threatened her carefully laid plans for control over the mansion and its affairs. "That girl is dangerous," Victoria muttered under her breath, plotting her next move. Her first attempt was subtle. She spread a seemingly innocent rumor among the staff, suggesting that Emily was overly curious about the mansion's secrets, prying where she shouldn't. Though small, the comment was calculated to make Emily appear intrusive, testing whether Alexander's growing interest would waver. Emily, unaware of Victoria's manipulations, continued to perform her duties with care, her mind often wandering to Alexander. She wondered if their connection could survive the invisible walls of class, expectation, and social scrutiny. The thought made her both hopeful and fearful. Love had never been easy, and now it seemed more complicated than ever. Alexander sensed the tension. One evening, while walking through the mansion's garden, he approached Emily, determination in his eyes. "Emily, I know there are challenges ahead, but I need you to know I'm not afraid of them." His voice was firm, yet tender. Emily looked up, startled by his sincerity. "Alexander, I feel the same, but what about everything else? The rumors, the expectations, your family?" He took her hands in his. "Let them whisper. Our feelings are stronger than any gossip or scheme. We'll face it together." Their private moments, full of whispered promises and shared glances, became Emily's lifeline. The mansion, though grand and imposing, transformed into a sanctuary of secret hope whenever they could steal away together. Victoria, frustrated by the subtle defiance she perceived, began devising more aggressive strategies. She would manipulate social gatherings, attempt to isolate Emily, and introduce distractions that could test Alexander's loyalty. The game of love and power was only beginning, and both sides were sharpening their moves. By the end of the day, Emily returned to her modest room, heart full of emotion, but aware that the challenges ahead would test her courage like never before. Alexander, staring out at the sunset from the mansion terrace, promised himself that no one, not Victoria, not society, not circumstance, would come between them. Days passed, but the invisible tension in the Monteclair Mansion grew thicker with each passing hour. Emily tried to focus on her duties, tidying the vast rooms and caring for the mansion's guests, but every step she took reminded her of Alexander. Their stolen glances in the hallways, subtle smiles during breakfast, and secret conversations in the gardens had created a bond she could not ignore, and one that was slowly growing into something dangerously intense. Alexander, aware of the growing challenges, struggled with the expectations of his family. He had been taught that love must follow social boundaries, yet his heart demanded otherwise. The more he tried to resist his feelings for Emily, the stronger their connection became. The mansion, with all its grandeur, seemed to mock him. Opulence could not replace the honesty and warmth he felt with her. Victoria, sensing the growing closeness, decided that subtlety was no longer enough. She began planting whispered rumors among the household staff and even some of the mansion's frequent visitors. These hints implied that Emily had ambitions beyond her station, suggestions that she sought to manipulate Alexander or gain access to the family fortune. Every word was calculated to create doubt and tension, hoping to make Alexander question the young woman he had grown to care for. "Emily, some people are saying things that aren't true," a concerned maid whispered one evening. Emily's eyes widened in alarm, but she refused to let fear control her. "Let them talk. Truth always comes out. I won't let lies shake me or us." Her courage only intensified Alexander's admiration. One evening, as they walked together along the sunlit terraces, he took her hand in his and spoke with quiet intensity. "Emily, no matter what they say, I trust you. I know your heart, and that's what matters." Emily felt a surge of warmth. The connection between them was more than attraction. It was trust, loyalty, and the shared courage to face anyone who dared stand in their way. Victoria's schemes began escalating. She manipulated minor incidents, creating situations that appeared to be accidents, doors slightly ajar in unsafe ways, small slips that could have endangered Emily, all to frighten her and unsettle Alexander. Yet Emily's alertness and quick thinking allowed her to avoid harm every time, turning potential disasters into moments that further strengthened her bond with Alexander. The mansion became a battlefield of subtle power plays. Alexander's role was not just of a lover, but also protector, shielding Emily from both physical and emotional threats. Every threat she overcame together with him became a testament to their resilience and mutual trust. By nightfall, Emily retreated to her small quarters, reflecting on the day. She had survived the subtle attacks, protected by Alexander's devotion and her own intelligence, but she understood that the coming days would only test them further. The mansion, once a silent observer of everyday life, had become an arena where love, jealousy, and ambition collided. "We can survive this. We will survive this," she whispered to herself, the moonlight spilling through her window and casting long shadows across the room. The Monteclair Mansion was buzzing with anticipation for the annual masquerade ball, a tradition that drew the city's elite to its grand halls. The chandeliers sparkled like constellations above the polished floors, and the scent of roses filled the air. Emily, dressed in a flowing emerald gown that accentuated her grace, felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. The ball was a perfect opportunity to witness the glamorous world she had long admired, and also to navigate the dangerous games Victoria had set in motion. Alexander, in his tailored black suit, adjusted his mask and scanned the ballroom. He had promised himself that he would not let Victoria or anyone else interfere with the night, and more importantly, he would not let his heart be hidden behind etiquette or expectation. His eyes, however, immediately found Emily across the room, and his chest tightened at the sight of her. Victoria, ever watchful, had orchestrated a seating arrangement that placed her strategically close to Alexander, hoping to create awkward interactions and subtle tension. Her smile, polished but cold, masked the calculations running through her mind. Every gesture and glance was designed to unsettle the couple and to plant seeds of doubt among the onlookers. As Emily moved gracefully through the crowd, her eyes met Alexander's. A silent understanding passed between them, a wordless promise that despite the scrutiny and schemes, they would remain connected. They navigated the room with elegance, exchanging whispered conversations behind the anonymity of their masks. The first test came when Victoria approached, her masked gaze piercing. "Alexander, I didn't know you were attending with someone from the staff." Her words were seemingly innocent, but loaded with implication. Emily's fingers tightened around Alexander's hand. "Ignore her," he whispered, his voice low but firm. "Tonight is ours." Victoria, frustrated by his dismissal, decided to escalate. She arranged for a chance encounter where Emily would appear to overhear a private conversation meant to imply deceit or ambition on her part. Yet, Emily's keen intuition allowed her to interpret the situation correctly. She realized Victoria was manipulating the narrative and refused to let it affect her. Throughout the night, subtle tests continued. Victoria orchestrated minor incidents. A spilled drink meant to embarrass Emily, whispered rumors disguised as casual gossip, and carefully calculated social missteps intended to isolate her. But each challenge revealed Emily's resilience and intelligence. Alexander's protective presence ensured that she felt supported, and their bond grew stronger with every passing moment. By the end of the evening, the masquerade's final dance became a private sanctuary. Surrounded by the swirling masks and twinkling lights, Emily and Alexander found a quiet corner. As they danced, the world outside seemed to fade. Their hearts beat in unison, and for a moment, there was no Victoria, no mansion politics, only the undeniable force of love and trust between them. "No one can take this from us," Alexander murmured, pressing his forehead to hers. Emily smiled, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Together, always." But as they left the ballroom, Victoria watched from a distance, her plans thwarted yet far from finished. The masquerade had tested them, and while their love had survived, she knew the real battle was only beginning. The morning after the masquerade, Emily awoke to the quiet of her small room, sunlight streaming through the curtains. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind, the stolen glances, whispered promises, and Victoria's cold, calculating eyes. Despite the elegance of the ball, one truth became clear. Their love had survived scrutiny, but danger was never far behind. Alexander, on the other hand, was restless. He could not shake the feeling that Victoria would escalate her schemes. Her subtle manipulations had grown increasingly bold, and he feared for Emily's safety. Determined to protect her, he spent the morning strategizing, planning ways to shield her from both social and physical threats without drawing unnecessary attention. Meanwhile, Emily made a startling discovery. While tidying the mansion's old library, she stumbled upon a hidden drawer containing letters and documents that revealed secrets about the Monteclair family. Alliances, betrayals, and long-forgotten disputes were meticulously recorded in delicate, handwriting. She realized that Victoria had been exploiting these secrets for years, manipulating events to maintain control over the family and its fortune. Emily's heart raced. This discovery was both a threat and an opportunity. Knowledge was power, and she understood that exposing these secrets could protect her and Alexander. but only if done carefully. One wrong move could put both of them at risk. Later that day, Alexander found Emily in the library, examining the documents with intense concentration. "Emily, what have you found?" he asked, his voice a mixture of concern and curiosity. She handed him a folded letter. "Secrets. Family secrets. Victoria has been using them to manipulate everyone, including you. We need to be careful." Alexander's jaw tightened as he read the contents. "She's more dangerous than I imagined. But now we know. And knowledge is power. We can finally fight back." Victoria, as expected, soon became aware that Emily had discovered something significant. Her fury was contained behind a polished mask, but her mind raced with strategies to regain control. She began orchestrating more aggressive social traps, attempting to isolate Emily and subtly turning other family members against her. Emily and Alexander, however, were no longer passive. Their bond had grown not only in romance, but in strategy. Each discovered secret became a tool, each whispered warning a guide. Together, they began plotting subtle moves to counter Victoria's manipulations while maintaining appearances of innocence. That afternoon, Emily and Alexander met in the sunlit garden, a quiet sanctuary amidst the mansion's grandeur. "We're stronger than she realizes," Emily said, determination in her voice. "And together, nothing can break us," Alexander replied, taking her hand. Despite the looming threats, they shared a moment of peace, the warmth of the sun reflecting the warmth in their hearts. Yet, both knew that Victoria would not stop. The mansion was a chessboard, and every move they made had to be calculated with precision. The tension in the Monteclair Mansion reached a boiling point. Victoria, aware that Emily had discovered the family's hidden secrets, decided it was time to confront her directly. Her plan was carefully crafted, a private encounter under the guise of civility, but her words would carry veiled threats designed to intimidate Emily and test her resolve. Emily was arranging the afternoon tea in the mansion's sunlit parlor when Victoria arrived. Dressed elegantly in a deep red gown, her presence was commanding. She offered a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Emily, isn't it?" Victoria began, her voice honeyed but sharp. "I hear you've been quite curious about the mansion's affairs." Emily met her gaze steadily, refusing to be intimidated. "Curiosity is natural, Victoria. I merely seek to understand." A shadow flickered across Victoria's face. "Understanding can be dangerous, don't you think?" she said, softly. "Knowledge is power, and power is something you should be careful to wield." The tension was palpable. Emily's pulse quickened, but she remained composed. She had Alexander's support and the knowledge she now held, and she refused to show fear. "I'm aware of the risks," Emily replied calmly, "but I won't allow threats or intimidation to deter me." Victoria's smile tightened. Bold words. "Let's see how long your courage lasts." Alexander, who had anticipated this confrontation, quietly entered the room, his presence a shield for Emily. "Victoria, leave her alone." His voice was firm, commanding respect. "You won't manipulate her." Victoria's eyes narrowed, assessing him. She realized that Alexander's loyalty had shifted completely. The young heir was no longer swayed by her manipulations, and that fact alone ignited a new level of determination in her. "Very well," she said, her tone icy. "But the game has only begun." With that, she departed, leaving a palpable tension in the room. Emily exhaled, feeling both relief and the weight of the challenge ahead. Later that evening, Emily and Alexander met in the garden. The sunset painted the sky in vibrant shades of gold and crimson, reflecting the fiery determination in their hearts. "She won't stop," Emily said softly. "No," Alexander agreed. "But neither will we. We know her moves now, and together we're stronger than ever." The first confrontation had set the stage for a series of battles, subtle, strategic, and dangerous. Emily's courage and intelligence, paired with Alexander's unwavering protection, would be tested repeatedly. Yet, in this challenge, their bond grew deeper, forged by trust, loyalty, and love. That night, as Emily rested in her small quarters, she knew that Victoria's schemes would escalate. But she also knew that with Alexander by her side, no threat could break their connection. The The mansion, grand and imposing, had become a battlefield, but one in which love had already claimed its first victory. The Monteclair Mansion, usually serene in the late afternoon, felt charged with unseen tension. Emily walked through the manicured gardens, her steps measured yet thoughtful. The soft sunlight kissed the edges of the rose bushes, but even nature's beauty could not calm the storm brewing in her heart. Victoria's confrontation had left a mark, an awareness that danger could appear at any moment. Alexander followed quietly, his presence both protective and comforting. He had grown more vigilant, ensuring that Emily could navigate the mansion, safely while remaining herself. "You're tense," he said softly, taking her hand. "I promise we'll face whatever comes next together." Emily nodded, grateful for his steadfast support. Yet, despite his reassurance, a feeling of unease lingered. She sensed eyes upon her, a presence lurking just beyond sight. The mansion, grand and imposing, had its own secrets, and Emily knew she must remain alert. Victoria, relentless and cunning, had not forgotten the garden's hidden pathways. She had arranged for a series of subtle traps and spies, hoping to intimidate Emily without exposing her own involvement. Small shadows moved along the edges of the flower beds, a whisper of movement that could be easily dismissed. But Emily's instincts were sharp. She noticed a glint behind the hedges, a subtle shift in the light, and knew someone was observing. "Someone's there," she whispered to Alexander. He immediately drew closer, scanning the surroundings. "Stay close to me. Whoever it is won't catch you off guard." The moment passed, but the sense of danger remained. It was a warning. Victoria's influence extended far beyond direct confrontation. Her reach was calculated, subtle, and invasive. Emily realized that to survive and protect their love, she had to remain vigilant at all times. Later that evening, the two met in the library, seeking the comfort of familiarity and knowledge. Surrounded by towering shelves and the quiet rustle of pages, Emily shared her discoveries of the mansion's hidden documents and secret passages with Alexander. They devised strategies to anticipate Victoria's moves, understanding that each subtle hint, each shadow, and each whispered rumor could be part of a larger scheme. "Knowledge is our ally," Alexander said firmly, "and courage is ours." Emily smiled, feeling a renewed sense of strength. The mansion, which once felt like a prison of social hierarchy and hidden dangers, was now a place where strategy and intelligence could turn the tide. As night fell, the moon cast silvery light across the garden paths. Emily and Alexander shared a quiet moment. The world of deception and danger momentarily suspended. Their hands intertwined, hearts beating in unison. They promised silently to remain steadfast. But even in the shadows of their private haven, the mansion whispered of looming threats. Victoria's plans were far from finished, and Emily knew that the coming days would test her courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable bond she shared with Alexander. The following morning, Emily awoke with a sense of determination. The mansion, with all its grandeur and hidden corners, had already revealed enough secrets to prove that knowledge was power. She knew there were still hidden truths that could protect her and Alexander, and perhaps even reveal Victoria's ultimate schemes. Guided by curiosity and instinct, Emily ventured into the attic, a dusty and forgotten place filled with old furniture, portraits, and boxes of family heirlooms. Cobwebs clung to the corners, and shafts of sunlight filtered through small windows, illuminating the forgotten treasures of the Monteclair legacy. Among the clutter, Emily discovered a small chest containing letters, journals, and photographs, documenting past family conflicts, alliances, and betrayals. Each piece painted a clearer picture of the mansion's complex dynamics and hinted at Victoria's manipulations throughout the years. As she carefully examined the documents, Alexander arrived, having followed her silently to ensure her safety. "Emily, what have you found now?" he asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and concern. She handed him a faded journal. "More secrets. These reveal patterns of manipulation and deceit that Victoria has used to control not only the family, but also the mansion itself. We need to use this knowledge wisely." Alexander nodded, impressed by her intelligence and bravery. "Then we have an advantage, but we must be careful. Victoria is clever, and she won't hesitate to turn any misstep against us." The couple spent hours in the attic, studying the materials and forming plans. Emily suggested ways to subtly expose Victoria's plots to other family members, while Alexander considered strategies to protect Emily from her cousin's growing malice. Their collaboration deepened their bond, creating not just love, but a formidable partnership. Meanwhile, Victoria had begun noticing Emily's absence and the suspicious attention Alexander paid her. Her instincts told her that Emily was uncovering something significant. Determined to regain control, Victoria enlisted the help of a few trusted servants, instructing them to watch Emily closely and report any discoveries she made. That evening, as the mansion settled into quiet, Emily and Alexander returned to the garden to discuss their next steps. The moonlight bathed them in silver, the night air cool against their skin. "It's clear that Victoria will escalate her efforts," Emily said thoughtfully. "And we'll be ready," Alexander replied. "Every secret she tries to hide will be a weapon in our hands." They shared a long, tender embrace, a silent promise of love and loyalty amidst the growing danger. The attic had revealed more than just hidden truths. It had strengthened their unity, proving that together they could face any threat. A week had passed since Emily and Alexander had explored the attic, and tension in the Monteclair Mansion continued to rise. Victoria had grown suspicious of their secret activities and was now watching their every move. Every glance between Emily and Alexander, every whispered conversation seemed to ignite her fury. One afternoon, while Emily was arranging flowers in the drawing room, she noticed a small envelope tucked behind an old painting. Curious, she carefully retrieved it. The handwriting was elegant, yet familiar, and the letter appeared to have been hidden for years. Alexander joined her, leaning over to read the letter. "Emily, this is important," he murmured. The letter contained revelations about the Monteclair family's past dealings, including secrets about inheritances, alliances, and betrayals that no one outside the family was supposed to know. More importantly, it hinted at Victoria's manipulations to consolidate power and influence over the mansion. Emily felt a mix of fear and excitement. This letter was both a threat and an opportunity. If used wisely, it could reveal Victoria's schemes to the family, but any misstep could endanger them both. "We have to be careful," Emily said, her voice steady but tense. "Victoria cannot know that we have this?" Alexander nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll use it strategically. We must expose her plots, but without alerting her to our knowledge." Victoria, however, was already taking steps to tighten her control. She had arranged for discreet surveillance, hoping to catch Emily in the act of discovering more secrets. Every servant was subtly enlisted, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and tension throughout the mansion. That evening, Emily and Alexander met in the library, surrounded by towering shelves and the quiet rustle of pages. They carefully examined the hidden letter and began crafting a plan to counter Victoria's schemes. They realized that information, when wielded with intelligence and patience, could be more powerful than confrontation or force. "This mansion has been a place of secrets for generations," Emily whispered. But now, knowledge is on our side. And so is our love," Alexander added. "Together, we're unstoppable." The couple shared a quiet moment of intimacy, holding hands as moonlight filtered through the tall windows. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger, but the hidden letter had given them a strategic advantage. Victoria's manipulations could be outsmarted, but only if they remained vigilant and united. As they left the library, Emily glanced at the shadows in the hallway, aware that Victoria's eyes were everywhere. The mansion, grand and imposing, had become a chessboard, and every move required careful planning. But for the first time, Emily and Alexander felt that they held the upper hand, and that their love could triumph over any obstacle. Tensions in the Monteclair Mansion reached a new peak as Alexander's father announced a formal family dinner. The event, intended to display unity and tradition, would unknowingly become a battleground for secrets, loyalty, and hidden agendas. Emily, aware of Victoria's watchful eye, felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Dressed in a modest yet elegant gown, she knew she must maintain poise and intelligence, for any misstep could give Victoria the leverage she sought. Alexander, protective and determined, arrived early, checking on Emily and offering reassuring words. "Tonight is important," he said, "but we're prepared. Together, we'll face whatever comes. Victoria, poised and radiant in her crimson gown, entered the dining hall with calculated elegance. Her eyes scanned the room, lingering briefly on Emily, a silent challenge passing between them. She had anticipated a confrontation and relished the prospect of testing Emily's composure before the assembled family. The dinner began with polite conversation, laughter, and the clinking of crystal glasses. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Every word, gesture, and glance carried potential consequences. Emily and Alexander moved through the evening with care, exchanging subtle signals and whispered reassurances. Midway through the dinner, Victoria attempted her first strategic attack. "Emily, I hear you've taken quite an interest in the, mansion's archives," she said smoothly, her tone deceptively light. "Curious minds can be dangerous, don't you think?" Emily met her gaze calmly. "Knowledge can protect us all," she replied evenly, "and I believe honesty is always stronger than deception." A murmur of approval and surprise rippled through the family, subtly undermining Victoria's attempt to intimidate. Alexander's protective presence was evident, his hand occasionally brushing Emily's under the table, a silent promise of support. Victoria, frustrated but not defeated, escalated her efforts. She arranged for a subtle accusation against Emily, implying that her intentions were not purely honorable. But Emily, armed with the hidden letter and her newfound confidence, countered each insinuation with grace and evidence, slowly exposing Victoria's manipulations without creating open conflict. By the end of the evening, the family began to see cracks in Victoria's carefully constructed facade. Her charm and influence could not withstand Emily's intelligence, courage, and strategic use of knowledge. Alexander, proud and supportive, ensured that Emily's strength was acknowledged, strengthening their bond and demonstrating their partnership. As the dinner concluded, Emily and Alexander retreated to the mansion's terrace. The night air was cool, and the moonlight illuminated their faces, reflecting the unspoken promise of love and loyalty. "We're making progress," Emily said softly. "And we're only getting stronger," Alexander replied, holding her close. Victoria, watching from the shadows, seethed silently. The battle was far from over, but Emily and Alexander had proven that courage, intelligence, and love could withstand even the most subtle and dangerous attacks. After the family dinner, the mansion seemed quieter, but Emily sensed that danger was far from over. Victoria's eyes were everywhere, and Emily knew that subtle schemes were being plotted even now. She had grown more cautious, understanding that knowledge, courage, and strategic thinking were her only defenses. One evening, while exploring the mansion's hidden corners, Emily stumbled upon a narrow, dust-covered passage behind a bookshelf in the library. Curiosity and instinct urged her forward, and Alexander, ever vigilant, followed closely. "Emily, are you sure about this?" he whispered, his hand brushing hers reassuringly. "Yes," she replied. "There's something here, something that could give us an advantage." The passage was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and the faint scent of old wood. As they navigated the narrow corridor, they discovered a hidden room containing more of the mansion's long-forgotten secrets. Ledgers, old correspondence, and artifacts that hinted at past alliances, betrayals, and Victoria's manipulative actions. Alexander's eyes widened. "This is incredible. Everything she's done, all the subtle manipulations, it's all here. We can finally see the full scope." Emily nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "And now we can prepare. Every secret is a tool, and every tool gives us power." Victoria, however, had anticipated that Emily might discover more hidden areas. She had placed subtle surveillance, ensuring that anyone venturing into certain parts of the mansion would be noticed. Emily and Alexander moved cautiously, aware that discovery could lead to immediate confrontation. Despite the risk, the hidden passage became their sanctuary. It was a place where they could plan, strategize, and protect their love without interference. The secrets uncovered within its walls strengthened their understanding of Victoria's manipulations and provided opportunities to counter them effectively. That night, they returned to the garden, the moonlight casting long shadows across the lawns. "Every secret we uncover strengthens us," Emily said, her voice resolute. "And every challenge brings us closer," Alexander replied, holding her hand tightly. The hidden passage had become more than just a corridor. It was a symbol of their resilience, intelligence, and partnership. Together, they would face Victoria's schemes, turning the mansion itself into a stage where love, courage, and strategy could triumph. Victoria, watching from her quarters, seethed silently. Her subtle attacks had been partially foiled, and she realized that Emily and Alexander were growing too clever, too united, and too powerful. The next moves in this dangerous game would require all her cunning, and they would escalate the stakes for everyone involved. The Monteclair Mansion had grown restless. Whispers and subtle glances moved through the staff and family members, a reflection of the tension that simmered beneath the surface. Emily, aware that Victoria's patience had limits, anticipated that a direct confrontation was inevitable. One afternoon, while delivering tea to the main hall, Emily unexpectedly encountered Victoria. Her cousin's presence was commanding, her eyes sharp and calculating. There was no pretense of politeness this time. The intent was clear: to intimidate and challenge Emily directly. "Emily, I hear you've been exploring the mansion's hidden corners," Victoria said, her voice steady but edged with danger. "Surely you understand the consequences of meddling in matters beyond your station?" Emily met her gaze without flinching, standing tall despite the tension in her chest. "I understand perfectly," she replied calmly. "But knowledge is not meddling. It's survival." Victoria's lips curved into a thin smile, a dangerous acknowledgement of Emily's courage. Bold words for someone in your position. Perhaps too bold. Alexander, sensing the confrontation escalating, appeared quietly behind Emily, a protective presence radiating strength. "She's not afraid of you," he said firmly, his eyes locked on Victoria's. "And you won't intimidate her." Victoria's expression hardened, realizing that Alexander's loyalty had shifted completely. The young heir, once influenced by her subtle manipulations, now stood resolute in support of Emily. "Very well," she said, her tone icy. "But this is far from over. Every move you make, every secret you uncover, will have consequences." Emily's resolve did not waver. "We'll face them together. Nothing will stop us." The confrontation ended without physical escalation, but the tension lingered, thick and suffocating. Victoria retreated, her mind racing with new strategies to regain control, while Emily and Alexander shared a quiet moment of relief and intimacy. Later, that evening, as they walked through the moonlit gardens, Emily reflected on the confrontation. "She's dangerous," she said softly, "and clever, but we're learning, adapting, and growing stronger together." Alexander took her hand, squeezing it gently. "Every challenge she throws at us only strengthens our bond. We're unstoppable when we're together." The mansion, grand and imposing, had become a stage for a dangerous game of strategy, trust, and love. Emily and Alexander's partnership had deepened, their bond fortified by courage, intelligence, and shared purpose. The confrontation in the hall was merely the beginning. Victoria's schemes would continue, but they were ready to meet them, head on. Days had passed since the tense confrontation in the hall, yet the Monteclair Mansion felt far from peaceful. Victoria's gaze seemed to linger in every corner, her presence an invisible shadow over Emily and Alexander. Both understood that patience and strategy were now more important than ever. Emily spent her mornings meticulously examining the documents and letters she had discovered, piecing together a clearer picture of Victoria's manipulations. Each revelation strengthened her resolve to protect herself and Alexander, while also plotting a way to expose Victoria's schemes without inciting direct retaliation. Alexander observed her quietly, admiration and love in his eyes. "You're incredible," he said softly. "Every step you take, every plan you make, it's brilliant." Emily smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We have to be clever," she replied. "Victoria won't back down, and she's always thinking several steps ahead." The couple began devising a whispered plan, a strategy so subtle that even the most observant staff might not notice it. Their goal was not just to protect themselves, but to turn Victoria's own tactics against her, using her manipulations as a tool to reveal the truth to the family. That evening, they met in their hidden passage, the familiar dust and shadows a comforting backdrop for their scheming. Emily spread out the documents on a worn table while Alexander reviewed the family ledger, cross-referencing dates and events. "Look here," Emily whispered, pointing to a series of letters. "These reveal her plans to manipulate certain family members for her benefit. If we expose just a portion carefully, we can disarm her without triggering her full retaliation." Alexander nodded, impressed by her meticulous planning. Every move must be precise. One mistake, and she'll exploit it immediately. Meanwhile, Victoria was unaware that her tactics were slowly being anticipated and countered. She spent the day plotting, yet her overconfidence blinded her to the fact that Emily and Alexander were no longer passive players. Their partnership, strengthened by trust and intelligence, was now a force she had underestimated. As night fell, Emily and Alexander retreated to the garden for a moment of quiet intimacy. The moonlight reflected their determination, the soft breeze carrying a sense of hope and resilience. "Tomorrow we begin," Emily whispered, her eyes shining with resolve. "And we'll succeed," Alexander replied, holding her hand tightly. "Together, nothing can stop us." The mansion, vast and imposing, had become a chessboard of whispered plans, concealed truths, and silent strategy. Every step they took brought them closer to exposing Victoria's manipulations, while simultaneously solidifying the bond between them. The Monteclair Mansion had grown quieter in the days following Emily and Alexander's whispered planning, yet tension simmered just beneath the surface. Victoria's eyes were everywhere, and her cunning continued to cast a shadow over every room. But Emily and Alexander knew they were no longer alone in their efforts. Late one afternoon, while reviewing family documents in the library, Emily noticed a figure lingering near the grand staircase. It was Margaret, an older housekeeper who had quietly served the mansion for decades. Her presence was usually unobtrusive, but today, her expression was one of knowing concern. "Emily, may I speak with you privately?" Margaret asked, lowering her voice. Emily exchanged a glance with Alexander and nodded. Together, they followed Margaret to a quiet corner of the library. "I've observed Victoria's manipulations for years," Margaret confessed, her eyes reflecting both caution and courage. "I've seen how she twists events to her advantage, and I believe it's time someone finally exposed the truth." Emily's heart raced. An ally with inside knowledge could be invaluable. "Can you help us?" she asked softly. Margaret nodded. "Carefully. I know her weaknesses. I can provide information, guide you through the mansion's hidden intricacies, and help you navigate the family's suspicions. But we must be discreet. One misstep and she'll retaliate immediately." Alexander placed a reassuring hand on Emily's shoulder. "With her help, we'll have an advantage we never had before." The trio spent hours strategizing, reviewing Victoria's past schemes, and identifying key moments to subtly counter her influence. Emily and Alexander realized that Margaret's knowledge, combined with their own discoveries and courage, created a formidable alliance. Meanwhile, Victoria, unaware of this growing coalition, continued her subtle attacks on Emily, hoping to provoke mistakes or sow doubt in Alexander's mind. Her frustration grew as she sensed that her control over the mansion was slowly slipping, yet she could not identify the cause. That evening, Emily and Alexander retreated to their hidden passage, where the shadows and dust of the old walls provided both cover and comfort. They reviewed Margaret's insights and plotted their next moves, understanding that careful timing and precision would be essential to their success. "Every secret, every ally, every move counts now," Emily said quietly. "And together," Alexander replied, taking her hand, "we're stronger than she ever imagined." The mansion had transformed from a place of threat and manipulation into a stage for strategy, courage, and love. With Margaret's unexpected support, Emily and Alexander were no longer fighting alone. Each revelation, each plan, and each whispered strategy brought them closer to exposing Victoria while deepening their bond. The Monteclair Mansion buzzed with preparation for another grand event, the annual Spring Masquerade. This year, however, Emily and Alexander approached it with a strategic purpose. Every decoration, every guest, and every whispered word could serve as an opportunity to expose Victoria's manipulations without alerting her. Emily dressed in a flowing sapphire gown, the fabric catching the light as she moved gracefully through the halls. Alexander, handsome in a tailored black suit, adjusted his mask with a sense of quiet determination. Their plan had been carefully crafted with Margaret's insights, subtle exposures, timed revelations, and strategic positioning to shift the family's perceptions in their favor. Victoria arrived early, her crimson mask perfectly matched to her gown. Her eyes swept the room, calculating and poised. She sensed something different about Emily tonight. Confidence, intelligence, and a courage that had grown beyond her expectations. As the ball commenced, Emily and Alexander moved gracefully through the crowd, exchanging brief, meaningful glances and whispered cues. Every step was calculated, every smile intentional. Margaret, observing discreetly from the shadows, provided subtle guidance and timing. The first subtle exposure occurred when Emily deliberately dropped a series of letters in the presence of key family members, hinting at Victoria's manipulations. Over the years, quick thinking and precise wording ensured that the implication was clear without direct accusation. Murmurs circulated among the guests, and curious eyes began to question Victoria's previously unchallenged authority. Victoria, realizing something was amiss, approached Emily with feigned charm. "Enjoying the ball, Emily?" she asked, her voice sweet but edged with suspicion. Emily met her gaze calmly, her mask hiding the confidence she felt. "Very much. And you?" she replied evenly, leaving a subtle hint of challenge in her tone. Alexander stepped close, his presence both protective and commanding. "Perhaps it's time the truth be acknowledged," he said softly, ensuring Victoria and the surrounding family heard. The tension rippled through the room. Guests exchanged glances, subtle questions forming in their minds. Victoria's carefully constructed image began to crack, and she realized that Emily and Alexander, with Margaret's guidance, had outmaneuvered her for the first time in a public setting. As the evening continued, Emily and Alexander danced, their movements elegant and synchronized. The masquerade's swirling lights and music became a backdrop for subtle victories. With every step, they reinforced their bond, demonstrating unity and strength in the face of Victoria's scheming. By the end of the night, the ballroom buzzed not just with celebration, but with curiosity and intrigue. Victoria, retreating to the shadows, understood that her influence was waning and that Emily and Alexander had become formidable adversaries. In a quiet corner of the terrace, Emily and Alexander shared a tender moment. "Tonight was just the beginning," Emily whispered, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "And we'll face everything together," Alexander replied, pressing his forehead to hers. The masquerade had revealed much. Courage, intelligence, and love could prevail over deception and manipulation. But the war for the Monteclair Mansion was far from over. The Monteclair Mansion seemed calm after the masquerade, but Emily and Alexander knew better. Victoria's pride had been wounded by the subtle exposure of her schemes, and her patience was fading. The couple remained vigilant, aware that new, more dangerous moves were likely imminent. One morning, while reviewing letters and documents with Margaret in the hidden passage, Emily noticed a pattern of unusual correspondence. Certain staff members were being subtly influenced, hinting that Victoria was planting spies within the household. The realization sent a chill down her spine. "She's adapting," Emily whispered, trying to manipulate from the shadows. Alexander placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Then we adapt too. We've faced her before, and we'll face her again. Together." Determined to uncover the full extent of Victoria's hidden network, Emily and Alexander split their investigations. Alexander discreetly spoke with trusted family members, subtly, gathering information, while Emily retraced Victoria's previous schemes, connecting the dots between letters, incidents, and manipulated staff behavior. Their careful investigation revealed a troubling truth. Victoria had arranged for certain staff members to mislead or sabotage Emily's movements, creating opportunities for public embarrassment or subtle humiliation. The couple realized that the hidden threat was no longer just Victoria's social manipulation. It was now a calculated effort to undermine Emily's confidence and isolate her from allies. That evening, they convened in the garden under the moonlight. The air was cool, but tension burned in their hearts. "She won't stop until she's cornered us completely," Emily said softly. "We need to anticipate every move." "And we will," Alexander replied. "We've learned her patterns, her weaknesses, and with Margaret's guidance, we can counter anything she throws at us. They developed a plan to neutralize the hidden threat without confrontation, turning Victoria's own tactics against her. Emily would subtly influence the misled staff members, providing them with small, discreet truths to counter Victoria's lies. Alexander would ensure that any potential exposure remained controlled, protecting both Emily and their shared discoveries. By the night's end, the couple felt a renewed sense of control and partnership. The mansion, vast and imposing, was no longer just a place of intimidation. It was a chessboard where knowledge, strategy, and love could outmaneuver even the most cunning adversary. Victoria, unaware of the countermeasures forming against her, seethed in frustration. Her carefully constructed plans were being undermined at every turn, yet she remained relentless, her next move poised to escalate the stakes even further. The Monteclair Mansion was quiet in the dead of night, the only sounds being the soft rustle of leaves outside and the occasional creak of old floorboards. Emily and Alexander had grown increasingly vigilant after uncovering Victoria's hidden network of influence, yet nothing could have fully prepared them for what was about to unfold. Shortly after midnight, Emily awoke to a faint noise near her window. At first, she thought it was the wind, but the soft crunch of footsteps on the gravel path told her otherwise. Her heart raced as she nudged Alexander awake. "Someone's outside," she whispered, keeping her voice calm but urgent. Alexander quickly rose, taking a lantern and silently moving toward the source of the disturbance. Emily followed, her mind alert and prepared. They discovered a shadowy figure attempting to slip into the mansion through the garden terrace. "Stop right there," Alexander commanded, his voice firm and authoritative. The intruder froze, then turned, a young servant known to have been subtly influenced by Victoria's manipulations. Emily stepped forward, her eyes steady and determined. "You don't have to do this. We can help you understand the truth." The servant hesitated, confusion and fear evident in their eyes. Emily extended a hand, her voice gentle but persuasive. "Victoria's schemes have manipulated you, but you're not trapped. You can make the right choice." After a tense moment, the servant slowly nodded, revealing critical information about Victoria's recent plans and her attempts to destabilize Emily and Alexander's growing influence. Every word confirmed the couple's suspicions. Victoria's ambition knew no bounds, and her next moves would be increasingly dangerous. Alexander placed a reassuring hand on Emily's back. "We've turned one of her pawns," he whispered. "Knowledge is our strongest weapon." Together, they escorted the servant safely back to the mansion's interior, ensuring discretion and protection. The midnight intrusion had not only revealed Victoria's ongoing tactics, but also highlighted Emily's courage, intelligence, and growing influence over those around her. The encounter strengthened their partnership. Emily realized that even in the darkest hours, their unity and strategic thinking allowed them to navigate threats successfully. The mansion, once a place of fear and manipulation, had become a stage where intelligence, courage, and love could outmaneuver deception. As they returned to their quarters, the moonlight cast long shadows across the gardens, reflecting the challenges still ahead. Victoria, unaware that her plan had been thwarted, would escalate further, but Emily and Alexander were now ready, stronger and more united than ever. The Monteclair Mansion had grown tense with anticipation. After the midnight intrusion and the strategic victories against Victoria, Emily and Alexander felt both empowered and vulnerable. Every corner of the mansion seemed to whisper secrets, and every shadow hinted at unseen dangers. One late afternoon, Emily and Alexander retreated to the library, seeking a moment of privacy and reflection. The sunlight filtered through the tall windows, casting a warm glow on the rows of books, creating a serene contrast to the tension outside. "Alexander," Emily began softly, her voice carrying a mix of relief and vulnerability. "I need to tell you something." Alexander turned, his eyes attentive and filled with concern. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. We've faced everything together." Emily took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "Through all this, all the danger, the manipulations, the secrets, I've realized something. I can't imagine facing any of it without you. I love you." Alexander's expression softened, a mixture of relief and joy. He stepped closer, gently taking her hands in his. "Emily, I've felt the same for a long time. Every challenge, every secret we uncover only makes my feelings stronger. I love you too." The confession, though simple, carried immense weight. In a world filled with deception, manipulation, and danger, they had found truth and vulnerability in each other. Their love became a source of strength, a shield against the growing threat of Victoria and her schemes. Margaret, observing discreetly from the shadows, smiled quietly. She had seen the transformation, the courage, intelligence, and growing unity between Emily and Alexander. Their love was no longer just an emotional bond. It was a strategic alliance capable of facing even the most cunning adversary. Later that evening, the couple strolled through the moonlit gardens, hands intertwined, hearts aligned. Each step reinforced their commitment, their trust, and their readiness for the challenges that still awaited them. "Together," Alexander whispered, "nothing can break us." Emily nodded, her eyes shining with determination and love. "And together, we will triumph." Victoria, unaware of the depth of their bond, continued plotting from her quarters. Her schemes had been partially thwarted, her influence challenged, yet she remained relentless. The revelation of Emily and Alexander's love, however, would soon become a pivotal force, guiding their next strategic moves and emotional decisions. The tension in the Monteclair Mansion had reached its peak. After weeks of subtle strategy, midnight revelations, and whispered plans, Emily and Alexander now faced the culmination of their efforts against Victoria. The entire household seemed to hold its breath, sensing that a confrontation was imminent. Victoria, confident yet increasingly desperate, had orchestrated a private meeting with key family members, intending to discredit Emily and reclaim control over the mansion. She arranged the room with deliberate precision, her every gesture calculated to convey authority and elegance. Emily and Alexander arrived, composed yet resolute. They knew this was the moment to reveal the truth. Every detail from the hidden passages, letters, and Margaret's insights would be crucial in turning the tide. Victoria began her presentation with charm and grace, subtly twisting narratives to portray Emily as manipulative and presumptuous. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the audience as she laid out her carefully constructed accusations. Alexander rose, his voice calm but firm. "Perhaps it's time to consider the other side of the story." Emily followed, holding the evidence she had painstakingly gathered. Letters, photographs, and documented schemes were presented, revealing the subtle manipulations Victoria had employed for years. Every accusation was countered with undeniable proof, leaving little room for doubt. The family, once under Victoria's spell, began to question her motives. Faces that had been indifferent or suspicious toward Emily now showed understanding and support. Victoria's carefully built facade began to crumble. Victoria, sensing her influence slipping, attempted a final desperate maneuver, trying to cast doubt on Alexander's loyalty. But the trust and unity between Emily and Alexander, fortified by their shared experiences and love, proved unshakable. "We are united," Emily declared, her voice steady and strong. "And your manipulations cannot change the truth." The room fell silent. Victoria's eyes flashed with fury, but the weight of evidence, witness accounts, and the undeniable bond between Emily and Alexander rendered her powerless. For the first time, she realized that her schemes could no longer dominate the mansion. Margaret watched proudly from the side, knowing that the courage and intelligence of the young couple had transformed the household. Emily's bravery, Alexander's loyalty, and their unwavering love had shifted the balance entirely. As the meeting concluded, the family began to voice support for Emily and Alexander, acknowledging the depth of their partnership and the truth of Victoria's manipulations. The mansion, once ruled by subtle threats and fear, now leaned toward fairness, strategy, and a new era of respect. Later, in the quiet of the garden, Emily and Alexander held each other tightly. The moonlight shimmered on the fountains, reflecting a sense of victory and hope. "We did it," Emily whispered. "Together, always," Alexander replied. The Monteclair Mansion awoke to a sense of calm and renewal. After the dramatic showdown with Victoria, the atmosphere that had long been tainted by manipulation and tension now carried a quiet optimism. Emily and Alexander walked through the grand halls hand in hand, feeling the weight of past struggles lighten with each step. Victoria, humbled and wary, had retreated into the shadows. Her influence diminished, but her presence still a reminder of the battles they had fought. Though she remained part of the household, her schemes had been neutralized, and her control over the family and mansion had waned. Emily and Alexander took this moment to solidify not only their love, but also their vision for the future. They met with the family in the sunlit drawing room, sharing insights, rebuilding trust, and ensuring that fairness and honesty would guide the mansion's future. "We've faced challenges," Alexander said, his voice steady. "But the truth and love have always guided us." Emily nodded, smiling warmly at the faces around her. "Every secret uncovered, every challenge overcome has brought us closer, not just to each other, but to the family and the truth." Margaret, observing, proudly added softly, "You've both shown courage, intelligence, and integrity. This mansion will never forget the strength you've brought to it." In the days that followed, Emily and Alexander continued to nurture both their love and the household. They created spaces of transparency and trust, guiding staff and family alike toward collaboration and respect. The hidden passages, letters, and manipulations that had once caused fear were now reminders of resilience and strategy. One morning, standing in the sun-drenched gardens, Emily turned to Alexander. "It feels like a new dawn," she said, her eyes shining with hope. "And it is," he replied, pulling her into a gentle embrace. "Together, we've transformed not just our lives, but this entire mansion. The days ahead promised new joys, challenges, and adventures, but Emily and Alexander faced them with unwavering unity. Their love, forged through trials and strengthened by strategy, had become the foundation of a new era in the Monteclair Mansion, a future guided by honesty, courage, and partnership. As the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the gardens, Emily and Alexander shared a quiet, tender moment, knowing that the past's shadows had been conquered and the promise of tomorrow was theirs to embrace.